don't get physical. I don't get physical. I don't get physical. I don't get physical. One, two, one.
Guten Morgen, my dear friends and family. Happy coffee, everyone. Operator Starsky joins the chat. So good to see you, my friends. Ali, Suzanne, Russo, Jeb, Foster, Andres, Martin, Chico, Nurabusnak, OZT, hello, my friend, and Prime Flux. Of course, we will talk about food today, I promise. Besides that, we will discuss a lot of interesting updates. Guten Morgen, Team Anderson and Valerie and everybody else in the chat. We will discuss a lot of updates. Katya, hello, hey. But before that, let me just jump straight into our fundraiser for the Rubizh Brigade, all right, for my guys. The guys that we're trying to help here, and we already crossed the mark of 8,000 euros out of 11,000, just a bit, and we will actually have a car finally enrolled to my guys, my friends. First of all, thank you so much for your support, and also check out the people who donated. There they are: Susan, Bettina, Annalisa, Jesse, Daniel, oh my god, Tony. Again, these guys are absolutely legendary. I cannot thank you enough for helping Ukrainian defenders, my friends. Cheers, this is to you. This is very important to me, as you know, because those are my guys, and I am trying to help them as much as I can. This is my very first car fundraiser for my brigade, and I appreciate your help. Switching to the most recent updates, I will probably start with our traditional rubric Heroes of Russia, where in Crimea, Russian terrorist Dmitry Popov, common Russian soldier who was recruited from the terrorist Russian prison, killed a teenager, Elvira Kravchenko, and basically that is what Putin calls defense from fascism in Ukraine, all right? This brave Russian man, simple Russian guy, my friends. He simply was doing his time in a simple Russian prison, 21 years old, and then he decided to just save Crimea from 17-year-old teenager. That is literally the face of the Russian world right there, my friends. Like this one, and individuals like this one, right? They build big muscles, they make scary photos, they come to Ukraine and basically show what the Russian world really is, all right? Which is terrorism, shit, and death. But besides that, we have some additional Russian cringe. I will translate this for you, my friends, because that's why I'm here. In Avdiivka, Avdiivka is a Ukrainian town that was captured by the Russian terrorists. Basically, you can see behind this Russian propagandist, right, what the Russian so-called liberation really means, because that is literally liberation of Ukraine from Ukrainians. So what they did is actually, I'm not sure if I can call it cringe or degeneracy. Probably in case of Russians, it's like a mix of both. But what they did, you will not believe, seriously. Check this out. He says, Avdiivka, war, ruins. Well, basically, Avdiivka, Ukrainian town, Russian war, and the ruins Russians brought with them. But the main thing is the marriage palace. So the Russian terrorists destroyed Avdiivka and built a marriage palace. That is what they call ZAGS. That is basically an office where you can receive basic civilian services like marriage, license of death in case your relative is deceased, things like that, the birth certificate and stuff. Check this out. Come here, get married, alright, and everything will be absolutely fucking fine. That is something amazing because after the Russian liberation of Avdiivka, just a few hundreds of citizens of this town left alive, alright? They still remain there, and the average age of those citizens that literally cannot leave this area is approximately 70-80 years old. So it's not like, you know, ruined Avdiivka with all that shit that you can see behind this Russian propagandist, alright? It's not like it's full of life and full of young people, because Russia basically killed everyone with their bombs and missiles and shells, and later the Russian terrorists who arrived there and literally eliminated majority of the population that wasn't able to run away to escape the death, and now they're building the marriage palaces that will remain empty unless they bring some, you know, those Russian settlers there and start populating Ukrainian soil with Russian nationals, like they always do basically throughout history. So I'm not sure, like on one hand that is kind of Russian cringe, on the other hand that is absolutely tragical, and that again shows you the mentality of the Russian terrorists. Destroy whatever is absolutely necessary, right? And then build a fucking marriage palace and pretend that everything's fine. That is absolutely ridiculous. But because I promised you some Russian cringe, Merc, guys, what is happening with Mercado? Let me know. Because I know that he's streaming right now, and I hope that everything's fine, but I don't know what is going on there, right? Okay, in the meantime, I will show you some actual Russian cringe, right? So, on your screen, you can see Pushilin, who is a... Pushilin is technically Ukrainian, he is a Russian collaborationist, he was one of those who actually started the Russian hybrid invasion in Donbass, and currently he is talking, that is an archive video where he talks about the Russian invasion, alright? In this video, Pushilin is talking that during the first days of war, because this is an archive video, he says that there are literally several days left before the Russian troops occupy the whole Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, alright? Literally just a few days, just 1020, right?
Не называя конкретных дат, но я скажу, что до выхода на административные границы, причем какие...
He says, I'm not naming the real dates, alright, the real days, but
Донецкой бывшей области, так и Луганской бывшей области остались считанные дни.
But before the Russian troops reach the borders, the administrative borders of Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast, there are just a few days, just a few, my friends. Just 1,418, as far as I can tell. Again, it's a joy to watch those videos because, as you probably remember, there were quite a few experts back in those days, including legendary Colonel McGregor, who said that basically Ukraine only has a couple of weeks before it capitulates. You know, the Russian magnificent troops are absolutely unstoppable, and it will only take, just a few. So, today we have a special date because the Russian invasion of Ukraine already lasts more than the Russian so-called Patriotic War between 1941 and 1945. As you probably know, Russians don't recognize the Second World War, all right, because in 1939 Stalin was actually an ally of Adolf Hitler. They were best buddies, best friends. They tore apart the Poland, all right, they tore apart Poland, and they had a mutual military parade in Brest. Google those amazing photos of Russian officers saluting to the German Nazi flag during this mutual parade. And to them, the war actually started in 1941, basically 2 years later after they occupied Poland together with the Nazi troops. And since 1941 and 1945, the Soviet people were bravely fighting against German occupiers that they were allied with, that Stalin was allied with. So their whole campaign in Ukraine is currently lasting longer than that whole campaign during the World War II, right? During the Great Patriotic War of Stalin versus Hitler. That is something very, very interesting. You know, somebody already mentioned there in the internet that took less time for Stalin to actually go all the way to Berlin than to go 60 kilometers from Donetsk and take Pokrovsk, which is, by the way, still not taken. Just to remind you what sort of, unstoppable superpower Russia is, right? Because someone in the commentaries also mentioned that let's be realistic, all right? You either negotiate, like your capitulation, or you lose all the people. Well, I will drink a whole bottle of sake from Kharkiv, by the way. Watching Russia literally collapsing and Ukraine withstanding it. Because, again, let's be realistic. If we want to be completely realistic, Ukraine was occupied by Russian Empire for quite a while. Ukraine was occupied by Soviet Bolsheviks. Ukraine was occupied by the German Nazi. Ukraine was then again occupied by the Soviet Bolsheviks. Where is Russian Empire? It doesn't exist. Where is the Third Reich? Doesn't exist either. Where is USSR? Doesn't exist, but Ukraine exists until today, despite whatever they're trying to do, despite all their efforts, throwing their constant, meat assaults, throwing their men into them. Let's be realistic, all right? Russia can be defeated because basically they suck balls in every war over and over and over again. Especially in this one, because they're fighting against Ukraine. Ukraine was the core of the Soviet army, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we were involved in different wars, by the way, against the United States as well, in Vietnam times, all right, because Ukraine Special Forces also participated and also, unfortunately, were involved in fighting against the American soldiers there on the Vietnam soil. But today, Ukraine is ally with the United States, Ukraine is ally with NATO, and Russians can basically relax and watch their empire collapse. So, this one, I think we can also talk about this one as a kind of a Russian cringe. So, in Caspian Sea, Ukrainian special operation forces have hit 3 Russian oil rigs. We know that the damage delivered was absolutely devastating. We know that their processing facilities there on those oil rigs are destroyed. And just to remind you, Caspian Sea is located approximately 1,000 kilometers from Ukrainian border. How do you like that? Good Ukrainian drones bringing kindness, happiness, and all that stuff, to those grumpy Russian people sitting on those oil rigs and feeding their war machine, as we always do. How come Ukraine can reach so far into the Caspian Sea? Oh my god. So what do we know? We know that the oil rigs named after Filanovsky, Korchagin, and Greifer were hit, according to the General Staff of Ukraine. Also, according to the General Staff of Ukraine, the Ukrainian defenders have absolutely devastated the Russian air defense system Buk M3, not far from Baranchevo in Luhansk Oblast. This complex is designed to fight aerodynamic targets, and it was obliterated. Also, besides that, Ukrainian defenders, as of yesterday, have performed the strike on the Russian ammo storage. So 49th Russian Army, not far from Novotroitsk, not far from Kherson, actually remain without their warm underwear and socks. Holy shit, those evil Ukrainians, they do it every single time. Let me take a sip. Good morning, Steven. Good morning, Betsy. Good morning, Valerie. IT Army UA, so good to see you so good to see you here as well. Got to love technology, 100%. I enjoy technology. I am a freaking big fan of it. Russia is a swirl of corruption, of corrupt lies floating in a frozen, stolen toilet. I couldn't describe it better, actually. Russia is not an empire. Technically, Russia is still an empire, and that is the reason why it collapses, because in 21st century you cannot exist as an empire. 21st century, when the world is absolutely global, we live in a global community, right? You cannot exist as an empire. Also China can be called an empire to some extent, but Russia is like literal incarnation of imperialism, chauvinism. I've been meaning to ask you, what's your blue beret in your photos for? So the blue beret on my pictures is literally the beret of National Guard of Ukraine. I believe in like 2020, as far as I remember, we switched our red berets to the national blue. That's the official name of that color, official blue. And in my brigade, we had to run 30? We had to run 30 kilometers in order to obtain one. So I ran at least 4 times. Because I ran for my beret in my battalion, then I ran together with the other battalion because I just was bored, and then I became a press officer, and I had to run 2 more times to make a video of our guys running. So I think I deserve already something like freaking silver beret, the helmet of Darth Vader or something. No idea. What do you think about Budanov joining Zelensky? I can only celebrate that. I think Budanov is an invincible man. It's very, very cool when you can surround yourself with invincible people, because Budanov, if you remember, he was already eliminated at least 5 times. And he keeps respawning over and over again because he's freaking invincible. I don't know, he discovered some kind of fast save, fast reload or something like that. So if you have people like that, and I think that Duncan MacLeod would be like extremely envious, all right, looking at what General Budanov and General Zaluzhny can actually do. Because Russians are like striking them with freaking caliber missiles, freaking, I don't know, ballistic missiles, and they just, get reborn, resurrected over and over again. Not sure if, like, MacLeod could do that as well. I think probably not. This one, I would really like to show you, because this is something very, very inspiring. So the British Minister of Defense was interviewed by a Ukrainian journalist in Kiev. Actually, he went to Kiev recently, and the journalist of Kiev Independent asked if you could abduct one of the world leaders, who would that be?
That one world leader, who would it be?
Oh, I'd take Putin into custody, hold him account for these war crimes, hold him account for what I saw in Bucha on one of my first visits to Ukraine, and for the abduction of some of the Ukrainian kids that I met in Erbil.
Genuinely thought you were going to dodge that question, you absolute legend.
British people are absolute legends, my friends, because like the British Minister of Defense literally doesn't give a slightest one, all right? He just says what he thinks, and I have nothing but huge respect to Minister Gilly, all right? He's an absolute legend. It's like he's literally saying what he thinks without fucking diplomatic, those maneuvers, without dodging inconvenient questions. He tells, yeah, we should arrest Putin for his war crimes, for abducting children, for all the shit he did in Ukraine, and that is absolutely amazing. He has my respect. Brits, you are legendary, seriously. You really are. Besides that, there is more to this one. I will talk about this just a bit later. Let me take another sip. I decided that if I drink the coffee fast, all right, during the stream, then I will not have to drink like cold remains of it, all right. Plus we can have a tiny conversation. In The Hague, we subjected people like Hess and Goering to the death penalty. I don't know if the death penalty still exists there, all right? On one hand, of course, I would wish that to Putin. On the other hand, I would wish him to be literally held in a cage somewhere, or like in the transparent prison, so people could just, pass by his cell, look at him, take a selfie with that motherfucker, tell him what they think about him and stuff like that. I would go there every single fucking day. Okay, and also I would show him, videos of his terrorist federation after it became small again. That would make Putin so friggin' happy. I don't want him to die fast. he didn't deserve that. So, thank you for gifted membership, mysterious benefactor like Batman or Batwoman. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for membership. Thank you for joining my channel. Thank you for joining the legendary group We Are Ukraine. If Minister of Defense could snatch Putin, then that would downplay Maduro's capture big time. Because generally, according to the current policy, all right, in the White House, you can capture whoever you like besides the true terrorists. One thing I cannot really understand, there Trump says that he wants Greenland because he's afraid that Russia is going to take it. Why do you invite Russians to Alaska then? I just cannot see any logical connection. Please explain this, my friends, because I'm lost. Very strange comment. Goering and Hess were not tried in The Hague. They were not executed and they didn't die in The Hague. Actually, as far as I remember, that's kind of correct, because I remember that they were tried in Nuremberg. Correct me if I'm wrong. World War II, the Nazis were subjected to a court-martial and taken out by a firing squad. I know that some of them were hanged, as far as I remember. Instead of their sentences, transparent cell, no allowance for clothing of any kind. I would allow him to wear something, because keeping him there without clothing would be a torture for people, actually, I think. So, but if he's there, like, wearing, for example, this prisoner robe, that would be an entertainment. Rudolf Hess died in Spandau prison in 1987. Would be nice if America was flying the NATO flag high, but I'm guessing American military won't be wearing the NATO patch. One of the reasons why we can see the increase in the defense budget in the United States, according to different rumors and different experts, is because that will cover the expenses that United States currently have in frames of NATO. So basically, who knows, maybe Trump actually plans to exit NATO for real, because if we check what he was saying about NATO, for example, before his 47th presidency in the United States. So, for example, in 2016 in Wisconsin, Trump said during his rally, here's the problem with NATO, it's obsolete. And it wasn't because, Europe didn't pay much, because that's exactly what he thinks, all right? That's his thoughts, that's Elon Musk's position, that NATO is basically obsolete. Russia should not have a deterrence force against it, all right? Russia should not remain, all right, within its sphere of influence, which is literally within its borders, because apparently Trump and Elon Musk and all other amazing experts, they think that if NATO disappears, then Russia will finally say, oh, fuck, thank you so much. We are giving up our weapons, our nukes, we are giving up our whole strategy of invading Europe, because finally NATO doesn't exist, let's live in peace, all right? That's what they think about a peaceful Russian country. On 23rd of March 2016, he was asked about it in Bloomberg interview, and he said, it's possible, I would certainly look at it. speaking about NATO being obsolete and should be gotten rid of. On 21st of August 2018, he was asked, would you leave us if we don't pay our bills? He said, yeah, I would consider it, of course. And he was asked again about this one. And he said, yes, I will leave you in Charleston. So looking at Mark Rutte, who keeps talking to Donald Trump as if he's like the only hope of NATO, all right, I can understand why he's saying so, because currently all the diplomats are trying to keep United States within NATO, despite the fact that Trump, all his team, all of his current allies, all of his former allies within MEGA, they all want to quit NATO because it's so easy, all right? It's so easy to withstand China, withstand North Korea, withstand Iran so far, all right? Withstand Russia, all right? It's so easy to do that on your own. And nobody even asks a question like, dude, what are you doing? What you're doing right now is literally making Russian dream come true. World without NATO, strong Russia from like Atlantic to Pacific Ocean. Nobody doesn't even ask this question to themselves. Like, what is that if it's not a sabotage? I would kind of ask this question, all right? I would kind of do, because we didn't defeat Hitler on our own. And today we have quite a few of his followers over there, all right? Starting with Putin. Amazing man. Robert Kennedy accused Germany in political repressions over the COVID dissidents. He wrote a letter to his German colleague, Nina Warken, and accused Berlin in prosecuting over 1,000 doctors that allegedly gave permission not to wear masks and not to vaccinate, and also thousands of their patients. He says the German government is destroying the sacred connection between a doctor and patient, which was kind of funny because according to the Minister of Healthcare of Germany, Nina Warken, they only prosecuted the doctors that were forging medical documentation. It wasn't like, fuck you, just, don't wear masks. They were forging the documents. If you know what it means in Germany, all right? When you fake the documents, when you fake different documentation, that is a crime. And besides that, this impressive man who says that drinking bad water makes you gay or turns your kid into trans, which was, of course, confirmed by multiple studies in his imagination. Also, he kind of wrote her name wrong. He wrote her name as working instead of working, because who the fuck cares, like working, whatever, it'll do. Speaking of the recent attack on Berlin energy grids, after this attack, Germany will increase the fight against the left extremism. Federal Minister of Internal Affairs, Alexander Dobrindt, said that they will implement measures against left extremists, because this shit is literally terrorism, because the government also wants to increase protection of energy companies, airports, and other objects of critical infrastructure from sabotage and terrorist attacks. I really hope that they would involve more Ukrainians in this process, because Ukrainians are currently fighting against this very problem on Ukrainian territory, and of course we have a lot of experience that we can share with our German colleagues. I really hope that they will do that. We have to cooperate more, my friends, because that's what normal people do, right, in the civilized society. We have to cooperate. We have to stand together. We have to fight against terrorist regimes, terrorist threats together. That is something that makes us stronger, and that is something that can multiply all the terrorist efforts by 0. Just saying. RFK is a ghoul. Kind of could be. As far as I can tell, all the healthcare ministers in Ukraine had at least some kind of medical education. I don't know how it works in other countries, but that's what we have in Ukraine. Maybe that's like, maybe that's something outdated, you know, maybe I'm just like old-fashioned, but I think that Minister of Healthcare should be at least acquainted with the topic, all right? By the way, as far as I remember, RFK is vaccinated, correct me if I'm wrong. RFK Jr. believes erroneously that birth defects are caused by routine child immunization. Dangerous old fool. Yeah, that's RFK is especially qualified for the post. Very experienced in drug use. Holy crap. Yeah, it's actually very interesting. Like, J.D. Vance, as far as I know, at least, he's vaccinated. Donald Trump is vaccinated. RFK is vaccinated. What's wrong with them? And why, at the same time, they convince people not to vaccinate? Kinda sus. I'll tell you that. The stories I heard about RFK Jr., I heard a few, all right. Didn't know that. Please check it out. The next one, all right. Okay, I have to make another sip. It is reported in different media outlets nowadays that during the operation of capturing Maduro in the during the abduction of Maduro, the United States Spetsnaz used some unknown weapon that easily and rapidly neutralized the Venezuelan Spetsnaz military and vehicles. At first, they removed the Venezuelan radars and communication. After that, the drones attacked the Venezuelan positions, and then the special forces landed and used something that looked like acoustic weapons of some kind, because Venezuelan military started bleeding and they all felt paralyzed. So I researched this topic and I can tell you what exactly happened, what sort of acoustic weapon the United States Special Forces actually used against the Venezuelan forces. The weapon is called Russian military training, all right? Because the Russian general Oleg Makarevich was sent to Caracas to train Venezuelan military, and basically there you have it, all right? That is exactly what happened in Caracas when the special forces of the United States landed there. That is Russian training. That's just so you could understand, all right? Because what sort of training can the Russia provide Venezuela with? The meat waves, the Spetsnaz, whatever. Well, we've seen meat waves in like Bakhmut, Pokrovsk. We've seen Russian Spetsnaz in like Hostomel. Well, basically that's the answer. But the legend about the acoustic weapons, of course, it has a right to live. All right. Why the Venezuelan troops were eliminated so fast? That is literally because they were trained by the Russian terrorists. They have like 100 Wagnerites, 100 so-called instructors in Caracas right now, and starting 2025 they were actually trained every single day by those Russian veterans, and basically we can see how good this training was. That is why every single time I'm saying that I really hope that they will train more people, right? Especially in the terrorist countries. Cavalry. Yeah, cavalry. I don't remember if they brought like horses and donkeys on board of that IL-76, but that would be absolutely amazing. Russia probably sells lower grade hardware to market to ensure these weapons are not used against them. Soviets did this extensively. Oh, we will talk about this one. Acoustic crowd control exists 100%. We could see one just recently being used in Serbia during the protests. But this one, the American Special Operation troops, they didn't have to use the acoustic weaponry to control the crowd, because we were talking about the Venezuelan military. They are not really crowd, all right? And if you're a bit acquainted with military tactics, they never collect, they never gather into the crowd, because that's lethally dangerous wherever you go. It exists, I agree, but the reason they failed so fast was literally because of Russian training. Chinese social media lambasted their own Chinese military hardware, getting wrecked in Venezuela. We will talk about this one. We will talk because that's actually very, very interesting. Russian Soviet era tech duo. Yes, we will talk about this one either. Just let me finish this freaking coffee and have a puff. Again, acoustic weaponry is very good. There's like acoustic microwave rays, laser stuff. They do exist, yes, especially the acoustic ones. They were used already back in Russia in like 1993. It's based on different rumors. It was the case in 1993 when they wanted to conduct like another coup in Russia, in Moscow. They kind of used that one. but we are talking about crowd control, right? This stuff is not designed to eliminate the personnel. Van personnel, according to like all sorts of doctrine, and especially Russian doctrine, that is well known, right? According to this doctrine, when you take a defensive position, the distance between the servicemen should be between like 5 and 7 meters. That is according to their field manuals. 5, 7, 10 meters. And based on that, you can generally understand what span of the front line can a battalion, for example, control, or a company, right? Everything is like according to the book, and Russians do everything according to the book, printed in like 1947. If Russia had better kit, they'd be using it. A donkey, horse, scooter, moped are Russia's only resource in quantity. Oh yeah. When I go to protests, most of them are older, retired professionals like me. We protest because we can. Yeah. Scientist power authority is scary. Chemical theories are real. Absolutely. Like, I'm reading commentaries and like my response is like, I completely agree with you, my friends. 100%. When someone says Russia have better things than what they use in the war, makes me laugh so hard seeing Russians on horses, donkeys, and scooters. Absolutely, because even today you can hear a lot of amazing opinions on the internet that Russia is fighting very, very carefully in Ukraine because they don't want to destroy buildings, they don't want to hurt civilians and stuff like that. That is why they're like very, very careful, all right? They launch several million shells here, several million shells there, several thousand missiles and bombs here and there because they're very, very careful, all right? And also send their troops on horses and donkeys because that's what the professional superpower today actually does, in case you didn't know, all right? Russians are saving their best till the end. Absolutely. They will be mobilizing people in like Ust-Pizdysk, because Ust-Pizdysk is the place where the best Russians are born. Horses got a built-in autopilot. They kinda do. They kinda do. They also have like a kinda built-in gas generator equipment. Discounted troops are the goal. Armed forces of Ukraine are experts at evening the odds 100%. Looking at Ukrainian defenders and Ukrainian special force operators literally obliterating Russian oil. I had some very, very interesting statistic that actually shows the dynamics of strikes throughout 2025. The strikes on Russian military industry, Russian troops or military objects, Russian oil industry, and their energy sector. And the way it develops over time, it's actually very interesting. I'll show you if you want. Russia is using the war to kill all their drug addicts, mentally challenged minorities, and others they don't like. 100%. One thing that makes me absolutely, absolutely happy, you know, every single time I watch those cringy videos of people from Western countries who decided to move to Russia because they want to escape this gay society and They want conservative values and stuff like that. They are tired of Muslims in their European countries, in United States or Canada or whatever. And that is why they decided to run to this white Russia populated by conservative Christian people, just to show you something, all right? Just for your information. This is Ramadan in Moscow, all right? That is literally Moscow downtown. Every single Ramadan, millions of Muslim people go on the streets to celebrate this amazing Muslim holiday. And generally, I don't know, I don't see anything wrong with this. But please don't tell this to all those pro-Russian degenerates who actually want to go to Moscow because they're tired of Muslims, all right? Because they will be kind of disappointed to learn about this one. Just for your information. Again, just for your information, according to the recent statistics, around 50% of Moscow is actually Muslim population. Again, don't see anything wrong with that. But to white power Nazi people from American continents and European countries, that might be a tiny discovery. So this is something very cringy that I will show. I'll take another puff because I cannot have enough. As they say, you can't breathe enough before you die. But the coffee is finished. Finally. It wasn't me. The coffee is done. And the American man is now separated from his wife and kids, forced to fight against Ukraine. Yeah, that's exactly what he paid for, my friend. That's exactly what he subscribed to. The rate at which the combat reservists self-remove themselves from the war zone lately is astonishing. Currently, it's more than one per day who smoked the AK-74 barrel for the last time. Oh my god. Sometimes I watch, all those compilations made in like autumn 2025, winter 2025, with the Russians who actually decided to make our job a bit easier, all right? That is completely insane. Yo, my friend, I haven't caught you live for ages. My friend, I have no idea. You generally don't receive much notifications from my channel anymore for the reasons I cannot explain. But I am streaming frequently, and especially these days, all right? Because I owe you guys, because you are inspiring me to do that. You might be done with that coffee, but coffee is never done. 100%. No idea how would I just live without it. Rubizh needs a truck, save lives, and donate. OZT, thank you so much for supporting our fundraiser. 100%. I would very, very much appreciate it. And by the way, OZT, look at his user picture there, and look at this, all right? We are the same blood, me and you, as Mowgli said. Yesterday we watched Mowgli with my lady because she didn't she didn't know about this story, and we also watched Pulp Fiction because she never watched it. All right, it was so cool. I'll make sure notifications are on. Yes, please do, because if you don't want to miss my streams, that's the only thing that you can do. I have no idea what is it related to or what is it connected with, but there are quite a few pro-Ukrainian channels that found themselves losing reach, all right, over the past year. Who knows? Who knows why? Mowgli is adorable. Yeah, the story is very good. The movie is very good. At the same time, the movie doesn't include a lot of like powerful scenes. For example, there is this scene where Mowgli is taken to the temple by the monkey people, all right? And the monkey people like do all kinds of crazy shit there in the temple. And then Baloo, Bagheera, and Kaa go to save him, right? In the book, there is this absolutely powerful scene. I expected to see this in the movie, but unfortunately it wasn't there. There is this scene when Kaa starts hypnotizing the monkeys, all right? He starts like his body starts changing shape and the car starts like dancing, you know, in front of them. And he goes, "Step closer." And the monkey is like, "Yes, Kaa." And then he keeps, you know, like shape shifting and he goes, "Closer." And he starts literally like swallowing them one by one. And then Bagheera and Kaa and Mowgli GTFO from that temple. And Bagheera is like, "Guys, you don't want to see what is happening there. Trust me. Let's just get the fuck out of here." That one was really powerful. Actually, I read that one in the book when I was like 6, I think. And that scene was very, very powerful. I still remember it. The Jungle Book, Bambi. Bambi was actually the very, very first cartoon that gave me PTSD, my friends. I shit you not. I wouldn't be surprised if the government was trying to reduce visibility to UAE news, especially since Trump is trying to quietly back out. Yeah, we'll talk about this one as well. Guys, let's return to our updates, because we haven't finished yet. Here we have a video made by Russians. So there you can see, again, new batch of African mercenaries in the Russian army. Let's hear what the Russians are talking about. They say, "Look how many one-timers or disposable guys we have over here." And besides that, they fucking sing. They're so happy. It's fine, they will go into the meat assault and everything will be fixed. The Russians behind the camera are actually celebrating the fact that they will be sending those mercenaries from African countries that actually arrived to the terror Russia, signed contracts or were tricked to sign contracts. The Russians are actually celebrating that those mercenaries will be thrown into the meat assault instead of Russians themselves. All right. Again, that is something absolutely disgusting. Yeah, they will be sent into a meat assault, he says, and they will sing a different song. Russia is so powerful, my friends. Russia is so powerful. Russia is undefeatable. Because today you can see Russia recruiting mercenaries from poor countries because Russia is so powerful and so mighty, because it's so unstoppable. Russia is buying millions of shells from North Korea because Russia is a military superpower. All right? That is something absolutely, absolutely disgusting. But we have some update from Rostov, where something weird is happening. Currently, no details on what that stuff is. Alright, we'll have more details later today. To me, that looks like Bavovnyatko, the cotton cutie, decided to bring Russians some joy and happiness. And on this screenshot, you can see the approximate routes of good Ukrainian drones. The blue ones are the jet drones or missiles. The red ones are, you know, those usual Ukrainian drones, Bober, whatever, bringing happiness to the Russians in Rostov-on-Don, in Krasnodar, Stavropol, and again, as we remember, 1 day ago, Ukrainian drones hit the Russian oil rigs over here, all right, all the way in the Caspian Sea. This is a very, very long stretch, my friends. This is a very, very long range, and Ukrainian drones are making all the way to the Caspian Sea nowadays. How cool is that? On your screens, you can see a screenshot from a CNN report with the remains of Oreshnik missile. All right. The funniest fact about this one is that inside of the super modern, powerful, unstoppable Orthodox Russian missile that was built by the best graduates of the Polytechnical University of Ust-Pizdysk and rinsed with the holy tears of Russian virgins. So this stuff is actually built using old Soviet lamps and gyroscopes, according to the experts who actually studied the insides of Oreshnik missile. According to the specialists, those components were used in 20th century, like 50s, 60s, you know, probably 70s, like that era, all right? So one thing I can tell for sure, of course, it's kind of cool that, you know, from the Russian standpoint, of course, from the standpoint of the Russian terrorists, it's kind of cool that they are using outdated technology and actually make this shit work. But this is as cool as actually Russians building a drone and sticking a freaking photo camera inside. Right, so like the one that we saw during our unboxing of a Russian Orlan drone in 2022, because they are so high-tech. And at the same time, we remember, yes, that the cost of a Russian drone like Orlan is announced to be around $100,000. But the real cost of it might be like 3-5, okay? Why? Because Gerasimov needs a new car, all right? Because Shoigu needs like a new villa or something like that. He needs to finish his renovation. His wife needs a new dress, you know, stuff like that. Which, by the way, brings me to an unexpected conclusion. Actually, the pro-Russian talking heads, like Team Pool, all right, the talking heads that are actually paid by Russians, in fact, they are not helping Russia. They are stealing from the Russian people. Think about it. They receive money that were stolen by the Russian oligarchs, by Putin himself, from his Russian population. So, for example, the dude somewhere in Ust-Pizdysk could have a sewer. He could have built like a water pipe, all right, and connect it to his house and have like running water. They could have renovations in Russian hospitals. They could repair Russian schools. That 50% of the Russian schools nowadays require complete renovation. But instead of that, they send those money to Team Pool, and Team Pool happily makes reports for the Americans, the reports that were prepared somewhere in the editorial office of Russia Today. How cool is that? I think they should be happy not only for supporting Russian terrorism and actually calling to continue atrocities in Ukraine, you know, all that stuff, not only justify the Russian crimes, but besides that, they also swallow the money from the poor Russian people that they kind of support, all right? Eureka. As of yesterday, all right, I already mentioned this one. As of yesterday, the full-scale Russian invasion reached the duration of the Russian so-called patriotic war, 1,410 days. One of those flags, by the way, is modern Russian flag, okay, on this photo. One of those flags belonged to the so-called Russian Liberation Army. That was an army of the Russian collaborationists during the World War II, with something between 700,000 and 1.5 million personnel. And Russia is currently wearing the colors of the Russian Nazi collaborationists in the World War II. Now, this one is actually really cool. UK announced that they will develop a new deep strike ballistic missile for Ukraine. London is currently announced a contest for accelerated creation of land-based ballistic missile with a range of more than 500 kilometers that can work and operate in the environment saturated with electromagnetic jamming and all that stuff, electronic warfare. The program is now called Nightfall. Oh my god, I can already hear this, you know, like Skyfall soundtrack from James Bond. Besides that, this rocket, this missile, should be capable of being launched from different mobile platforms, perform a fast launch, and quickly change position within just several minutes. And according to the technical requirements, this missile should be theoretically able to reach Moscow. That is the Storm Shadow over there, also known as Scalp. We're using those, as you probably know. But again, my dear friends, Brits are absolutely legendary. Like, they just don't care. Okay, we're fighting, we're fighting. We are supporting, we are supporting. Okay, no bullshit. That is something that I completely respect and appreciate. All right, because again, Ukrainians also don't like bullshit. If we are doing this, we are doing this. All right. If we're going to like bad, you know, dodge inconvenient questions, then just all right. Let's just switch to something else. I'll be seeing that in my head all day now. Yeah, same here, same here. It's already like playing here in my head. 500 to 5,500 kilometers is intermediate range ballistic missile. A cruise missile is less than Mach 700 mile per hour. Yes, cruise missile doesn't need to fly at that speed, but if we're talking about Russian missiles, they kind of accelerate. As far as I know, some of the Russian missiles, they kind of accelerate to above Mach speed before they strike. So they fly slow, hugging terrain and everything else, and before they hit, they accelerate. My friend from the air defense, he actually talked about this. He said that we can see the Russian cruise missile, okay, we are like preparing to shoot, to intercept it, and then it literally disappears from the radar within several kilometers to the target because it accelerates and we cannot track it. Recent priorities of the Russian army were published by Ukrainian media outlets based on the data obtained from the military intelligence of Ukraine. According to this data, Russia has two big goals planned for 2026. First of all, they plan to occupy the whole Donetsk Oblast. And secondly, they also want to occupy Zaporizhia. In Zaporizhia, currently, we know that they're concentrating their troops. It's getting much louder. Their tasks are to move west and northwest of Ghulyai Pole, attack from the area of Stepnohirsk towards north and northeast, capture Orikhiv, and actually get closer to the Zaporizhia, which is major city. It's one of the major cities that Russia hasn't captured any of them since 2022. So those will be their goals. This video actually shows something very interesting. You can actually observe that stuff burning over there, right? That is Russian TOS-1 Santsepek, the legendary Russian thermobaric MLRS. That is MLRS shooting thermobaric charges. They are very nasty. They are very, very bad. Russia had 60 of them before the full scale, which actually makes it very much rare, all right, considering that the span of the front line in Ukraine is around 1,500 kilometers. 60 MLRS of that type that can actually shoot at a range of around 6 to 10 kilometers. That's a range of literally a 120 millimeter mortar. That stuff is kind of rare and is getting even more rare, as you can see. So, what was burning in Rostov? That's literally Novocherkassk heating power plant right there. Why did it happen? Well, it happened because of those high-precision Ukrainian debris falling on the territory of that Russian heating power plant, because Russians actually don't deserve heating, all right? Let's be realistic. They just don't deserve it. Oh my god. Guys, let me know in the commentaries if you want to talk about that one, because I really don't feel like. But if you want, you can check the True Social account of Donald Trump, who actually published himself as an acting president of Venezuela. How do I comment on that? I don't know. You tell me. I'm lost. Yo, I completely support this one. Like, I've no desire to discuss that, man. Yeah, absolutely. On the other hand, maybe like he should try. I mean, you cannot be president of both countries, all right? Because that's not how the democracy works. But he should try, I think, being a president of Venezuela. Actually, why not? Like, it's not like I hate Venezuelans, all right? It's not like I wish them horrible suffering and stuff like that. But why not? He can try. Oh my God. I literally, I can literally hear, the sounds of like Delta Force choppers already approaching my house in Germany. Jesus. Mr. Trump, please don't do that. We promise not to talk about you on this stream, alright? On the other stream, maybe, but not on this stream. Russia was a re-education camp where they tried to brainwash everyone into forgetting themselves and adopting a Soviet identity. That is true. That is true. And currently, Russia also has, again, I mentioned this multiple times, Russia also has military camps for kids, where those kids are actually indoctrinated and trained as future Russian invaders and fascists. How to get Trump to change a light bulb? Tell him Obama changed one. That's smart. We should use that for our own benefits. They suck all the oxygen out of the air. Talking about the Sansepiok, yes, the thermobaric charges are nasty. And one of the Russian terrorists, Givi, was eliminated before the full-scale invasion. He was eliminated with a shot from the Russian RPO Shmel. That is literally a grenade launcher loaded with a thermobaric charge. So it was shot into a window, and literally everyone inside of that house where Givi was at that moment, they became a fertilizer immediately. That stuff is kind of nasty. Russia stealing European children because Russia is a barbaric horde. 100%. That's what they do, and they don't give any damn about it. We know that Russians are already adopting Ukrainian kids massively. Russians literally have those websites where they post their pictures. There was a big journalist investigation on that where they identified, I think, around 100 Ukrainian kids that were published on those adoption websites in the Terrorist Federation. How exactly are they going to return those children back to Ukraine, all right? Back to their relatives. Some of them still have parents. How exactly are they going to do that? How many Russians to change a light bulb? None. Putin says it's bright in here and Russians stand in dark clapping. How many Russians do you need to change a light bulb? I have no idea. I have like 8 in my basement and it's still dark. Oh, I forgot, sorry. Oh my god, so many cool jokes about the light bulb. I love it. Yeah, it's like, what's the difference between Ferrari and dead orc? I don't have Ferrari in my garage. And to those who think that is like, you know, like what kind of Russian do you have in your garage? Check out the video with Yemelyan. All right, my good friend. He's good. Like seriously, he is. How many programmers does it take to change a light bulb? Trick question. That's a hardware issue. Ah, I see. How many Russians to change the light bulb? I don't know. They stole my toilet. Yeah. But actually, it's crazy. It's crazy because, for example, I followed very, very closely the Russian invasion of Georgia in 2008 when they took over some of the bases on the Georgian territory and then they withdrew from those bases, taking everything. Electric outlets, light bulbs, literally, you know, doorknobs, everything. That was insane. Gaslighting joke, Russian tunnel crawl. Yeah, especially that one with a wild hog. The Russians know what a light bulb is. I think they kind of do. I mean, they're building like those super modern Aviashnik missiles using like old lamps, right? So apparently they have some kind of knowledge in that direction. Can't believe they took that. They actually did. Like literally every, by the way, including toilets. So that was literally the Russian trend already back in 2008. I remember watching those updates from Georgia when Georgian military went to their barracks and literally were shocked to see that they're completely empty. One thing I still don't understand. In Holstomal, for example, we had a barracks. We had very nice barracks, all right? So one thing I don't understand is why would they put sand into the toilets? So the toilets were completely fucking clogged, all right? They would put sand in the toilets. I don't have any logical explanation to that shit. They would put metal lockers. Again, that's all in my videos there. They would put metal lockers along the walls. Well, all right, let's consider that they wanted to protect themselves from like shells flying through windows. All right, let's consider this an explanation. But where would they take a shed? They would go between the window and those metal lockers and take a shed there. And they would sleep on the other sides. All right. So that's something I just cannot understand. They are like fucking cavemen. And if you listen to like Scott Ritter, you know, that's registered sexual offender in the United States, he says that like Russian officers have honor, Russian soldiers are so good and educated and shit. But check out my videos from Hostomel, like back in those days. I just cannot understand that. But looking at that, you can actually understand how they live back in the Terror Russia. Why actually Terror Russia looks as if it's being constantly bombed by Ukrainian and American dirty bombs, you know, like every single night. Probably that's because they behave like pigs at home as well. Maybe, I don't know. That's an insult to cavemen. I'm very, very sorry. After all, cavemen were, let's say, developed enough, all right, to understand basic principles that you don't shit where you sleep. So I agree. I'm sorry for insulting our ancestors. They were much more educated. Are they hybrids? Don't seem possible to be fully human. They're Russians. The Russian bear poops in the woods. Yeah. That is a famous image of, you know, like Kiev, 600th AD, all right? Like huge city with churches, with people and everything else. And then like Moscow, 600th AD, literally like a bear, you know, wiping his ass with like a pine cone. It's a reality. Special kind of species that never fully develops. Yeah, according to all the rules of evolution, all right, they're kind of doomed. Especially looking at the way they just self-terminate, either massively in the meat assaults or themselves, all right? Maybe that's like the point of all that, of this terrorist federation, Russian society. Maybe that's like the whole point. Everyone should die. I have no idea, my friends. But we reached the end of our updates, okay? And unfortunately, I have to make another video for UATV. Please check it out later today, because we will have more details on the Ukrainian deep strikes on the Russian territory. And also we will have some more interesting updates, not only from Ukraine, but also beyond. And also, I would really like to say big thanks to you, my dear friends and family there in the chat, for all your beautiful commentaries and questions, and also the food talk. We will have it next time, all right, because I didn't have any food since yesterday. So that's something that I would like to fix very, very fast. And also, big thanks to all the moderators there in the chat. Big thanks to all the members of this channel. We are Ukraine, regardless of where you are, and regardless of how close or how far we are from each other. We have a tiny, tiny piece of Ukraine inside our hearts around the world, and that is something that makes us stay together. Thank you so much, dear supporters, dear defenders, dear family. We'll see you next time. I will announce the next update in the community posts, so also please follow it, and we'll see you very, very soon. Be safe, don't forget to treat yourself with something good. I'll most probably have like a scrambled egg and bratwurst, because bratwurst is a good start of the day. See you later, and goodbye.